And for confirmation of the agenda, do I have a mover? Councillor Syke, Councillor Vauden. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, if any. None noted. Moving to the consent agenda. The councillors can pull any item out for further consideration if they want. Councillor Knott.
4.3.5, I believe it is. I'm going to check that. And also 4.3.6. I'm gathering that they would like letters of support or us to make motions in support along with this Bill C-71 in their opposition to a bill which basically covers a lot of items federally in gun regulations that already exist and are not being enforced. I'd like to pull out and recommend that we give them a letter of support or a motion of support for that. That was the Township of Baldwin letter.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Second. Deputy Reeve Campbell seconds. Further discussion? Okay. All in favor of the motion? Carried. And 4.3.6 as well?
Yes.
Go ahead.
That was regarding the Milton truck rail development. And I know that the town of Milton's objection here is that they are basically, not necessarily is this a bad project for the town of Milton. In fact, it's a good one. It's jobs and so on. But unfortunately, the attitude being taken by CN Rail, which is a private corporation, and the federal government is that transportation is federally regulated and that they are allowing the municipality little to no input into how this development goes forward. And this may be a problem in the future where we're being asked to take on more costs as the province and the federal government try to download to the municipality, and yet we have them basically telling us we have no right or no say in developments that are either provincially or federally regulated. And I think we should give them what they're wanting, and I think they actually want a letter of support here. You have to excuse me, I had the other eye operated on. I've lost my reading vision. It used to be the other way. I could see in the distance, or could not see in the distance, but I could read. Now it's the other way. I keep putting glasses on and off long. So excuse me if I'm a little slow. I'm trying to remember what they wanted here. I think they want a letter of support to the federal government with regard to municipal participation in these decisions and making sure that we do have, as a municipality, that we do get an opportunity to have input into any of these developments or projects. So I guess I'll make a motion that we give them a letter of support or whatever. I'm not sure. Is that what they're after? Letter supporting? That's what.
You're seconding it, Councillor Vauden. Seconds. Further discussion, if any? All those in favor? Carried. Okay.
I'll move approval of the agenda.
Okay. Councillor Vauden, Deputy Reeve Campbell. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Moving to public meetings. 5.1. Laura Edgar, Charlene Boland, and Lisa Coltman, Friends of the Village of Blythe. You have the floor. Pat?
I would just like to take a moment to introduce the group and thank them for coming tonight. While you're getting set up, come on up and This group is a very active group of volunteers in the village of Blythe. They are phenomenal at raising money and putting that towards beautification of flowers, gardens, memory garden, and all sorts of other activities to beautify the village of Blythe. So they liaise with our department. Lisa Copeman is our point of contact, and I thought it would be very helpful for them to come to council to share some of the great work that they have been doing to bring council up to speed on their future projects, as well as all the great things that they have done. So they're just doing a quick presentation tonight to share with North Huron Council what they've been up to.
Great, thanks, Donna. Thank you very much to the Region Council for having us here tonight. I'm Laura Edgar, and our other presenters are Charlene Bowen and Lisa Copeman, and then we have a number of supporters who are part of the group with us tonight too. So what we're going to be going through tonight is just an introduction to the group, who we are and what we do. A nice tour of beautiful Blythe. There'll be lots of pictures of flowers to get us through a snowy evening, fundraising, what we've been doing, and our presence on social media. So our group, for many years, there was a Blythe Horticultural Society. In 2016, it formally kind of disbanded, and then Friends of the Village of Blythe came to be in 2016. We do have a memorandum of understanding with the municipality and are considered a non-township committee defined as a volunteer user group. And our aim is to assist and support the gardens and plantings in Blythe, promote knowledge of and interest in the plantings, parks, and natural environment in Blythe. And we assist in raising funds for special projects beyond the scope of the North Huron Blythe Parks budget. We have a number of members. These are them, and they're continuing to grow. We had a meeting yesterday and had a couple new faces out, so that's excellent. We have a lot of strengths as a group, a range of talents that come together really well. Everybody brings something to the table. Also a range of ages and life stages. So a lot of our members are still in the workplace or have kids at home, are retired or partially retired, both men and women in the group, and lots of different range and actual gardening skill levels. So if you're interested or know somebody who's interested in joining, don't let lack of knowledge of gardening hold you back, because everybody brings something. So our group members actively and regularly monitor the trails and the streets to make sure the village beauty and appearance is something we can all be proud of. And we keep an eye for any concerns or potential safety hazards and report them immediately to Dave Cook. And many of our members will take ownership for the upkeep or development of a specific flower bed or garden. Our group enjoys working with whoever is keen to help make our public spaces enjoyable. Most notable will be our regular communication with North Huron Rec, as Pat mentioned, and North Huron Facilities. And as she said, Lisa is our liaison with the rec department. They meet at least twice a year. And she's also in regular communication with Dave Cook. One petal that we're missing here is the Lions. We work with the Lions a lot too, and that I just accidentally left them out. It's kind of like one of those got picked off in a love me not situation. Another way our work in the community extends beyond just the group is that we'll advertise events like this annual spring garden cleanup, and we'll invite our 257 followers on Facebook to come out and help with that. So it's just another way that we invite people to participate. So next we'll be moving into a tour of the village, of our public spaces. And here's a map of the village using the laser pointer. So if we come south, down from where we are, we have our first kind of garden bed area at the sign on the south, on the north end. Up here, we have the Anglican Cemetery, historic cemetery. Lovely place to see a sunset or go geocaching. We have Waterworks Park. And down a little bit is the trailhead for Guelph to Goderich Rail Trail and the Greenway Trail. At this location is also where our butterfly garden is. We take a little walk down the trail. Oh, it's a slow go. Then we can get to the Memory Garden, which is at the end of Drummond Street there. Do a little hike up, and we're at the Horticultural Park. We're going to be talking about all these spaces a little bit in more detail. Lisa's going to take over in a minute. we have this flower here just to represent the Main Street hangings. There's Lions Park here, Main Street flower. we have no public executions of lions. We have the arena here.
Not lately.
Out here we have some threshers, garden beds. At the south end of town we have the sign, and then right beside there's a flagpole garden as well. And then way out here we have the cemetery where there's lots of gardens and boxes around trees and such as well. So I'll pass it over to Lisa, who'll talk a little bit more about a couple of these spaces.
So here we have the Memory Garden. Memory Garden Subcommittee puts in hours of work weekly maintaining the many gardens there. They also put on a Memory Garden dedication service each year in honor of those who have passed, which is well attended by friends and family of loved ones lost. The Horticultural Park. In the fall of 2016, the Friends of the Village won their submission to the Canadian Garden Council 150th Tulip Garden of 1,000 red and white tulips, which we planted at the Horticultural Park and hosted 2 celebrations at the park in accordance with the terms of the contest. So you can see one of the flower beds there. The park will be the major focus of our efforts this year. This is a picture of the landscape design. We had enlisted a designer last year, and this is the concept that they came up with. We have some money dedicated to the revitalization of the park from the previous Horticulture Society. We will be doing fundraising to complete the plan. Next, we have the Greenway Trail. 2016 and 2017, we participated in the Spring on the Trail. 2017, we assisted the G2G in hosting and promoting their annual meeting on the Greenway Trail. Butterfly is also located on the trail. The Greenway Trail features a butterfly garden, which many people enjoy while walking the trail, as do the snakes and butterflies, etc. As you can see them there. The Blythe Union Cemetery. We are continuing the legacy of Carol Gross, a community member who has passed, by planting hostas around the trees at the Blythe Union Cemetery. This is beautifying the cemetery and should eventually help with the maintenance around the trees. The hostas are all donated by the community. The north and south end signs. One of our group members propagates seedlings to plant at the south sign. In 2017, the flower bed was decked out with red and white flowers in the shape of a Canadian flag designed by the same member. There is also a garden around the flagpole on the other side of the street, which hosts some red and white tulips, which were part of a fundraiser we held. We would like to do some work on the north end sign to show off the entrance better by adding plants and replacing shrubs, perhaps some new lighting options as well. Some of the other areas that Laura had mentioned, the Thresher's Garden, the front of the arena, there's a flower bed there. Those are things that we also kind of keep track of and monitor and plant in. The hanging baskets, we discuss and decide on best choices for the hanging basket on Main Street and make sure they are properly cared for. This year we have new benches that have been ordered and a planter that are coming in May for the Main Street. And we keep an eye on the historical cemetery as well. Charger.
At this point, our group would like to say a thank you to staff and council for funding projects as well as their ongoing support. It really means a lot to us. Our fundraising activities include daylily sales. Fallhaven Farms propagates new varieties of daylilies, and we were able to choose one and name it Belle of Blythe, and this is her here. This name has been registered with the Daylily Council of North America Any sales of this color go directly to our group. We have raised over $1,000 with this fundraising activity. We've also done a raffle draw. One of our members made a quilt for Canada's 150th for us to raffle off. This raised over $1,000 for future projects. As you can see, the second prize was a stained glass window, and the labor was donated by the artist. Third prize was 3 Bell of Blythe daylilies and a basket of Robinson's maple syrup. And this is a future fundraising activity that we're currently collecting photos for. It'll be a Blythe calendar featuring our public garden spaces. And we're looking at efforts to raise more funds with this calendar, depicting scenes from our village. Social media. We are present on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And I apologize to Laura because I didn't mention the Twitter. So for Facebook, we have 257 followers and growing. Instagram, 186 follows, and Twitter, 145. And we're doing okay. We noticed that there's quite a lot of local sharing, which of course we hope for, and that North Huron does share all of our posts, and we really appreciate the support. We use our social accounts to promote our public spaces, notify people about upcoming events and fundraisers, and we also get questions about Blythe in the surrounding area and what's available from time to time. This post is an example of partnering with North Huron Rec to offer outdoor yoga in the summer, and that was very popular. We had a lot of attendees to that. Here are some images that we've posted on our different social media accounts. Some of them come from Lisa, she's a great photographer. Some of them come from people who've just shared their photos to that page. So we do have a lot of interaction, even with, so we're quite happy with that. And that captures the beauty of life in all our different seasons. And now I'm just going to hand back to Laura to do the wind up.
Yeah, and basically just that's it, folks. But any questions or comments, thank you very much for having us here tonight.
Going to Councillor Knott first.
I would really like to thank the group, Friends of Blythe. I think that you people have far exceeded our expectations when the council, pardon me, when we transitioned into the Friends of Blythe, and I think you guys have done a tremendous job, absolutely tremendous job. For a small group, we do a lot of work, cover a lot of gardens, and I want to thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank you for the great presentation. It really shows us what Blythe really looks like. A lot of beautiful pictures in there, and a lot of nice flowers. I'm not telling my wife. I like to say.
I thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the civic interest in keeping Blythe beautiful. Thank you very much. Okay, moving to our second delegation, John Green with Veolia Water is going to report on 2017 annual activities review. John?
Good evening, Your Worship, council members. I haven't done a PowerPoint for a long time, so I need to figure out the next screen here. So it's that. Do I go back on this one? Turn it off. Save. Oh, there we go. It's that one. I got it. I can do that one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's great. I should bring you with me. Yeah. Council ones I have to do. First, before I get going too much on this, if I use any acronyms, I speak in acronyms all the time with my business. Stop me, put your hand up and I'll explain what I'm saying. So, water for regulation 17003 requires that we provide an annual report by the end of February of every year and an annual summary by the end of March every year. This is a summary of the reports and summaries that were handed to previously they came in. So I believe there's a resolution on this that after you see and hear the presentation, I'll keep it brief, leave it open to questions. And I believe it's also available on your website to any members of the public that may require it. So we have some capital improvements. This is on the summary side of water improvements, maintenance completed. The Wingham water, there's a pre-contact chlorine analyzer. So POE, I see this, my admin assistants put that on point of entry. There's POE for those who want to know. It gives you a heads up on chlorine residual to ensure the safety of the quality of the water. Put some new chlorine pump, did some distribution flushing here in Wingham. And I believe there's some hydrants painted. We did some along Main Street. And I think there's some to be done this year again with the BIA, if I remember right. Blythe water, again, we did the distribution flushing, some hydrant painting, and the computerized maintenance program is an activity that shows us what needs to be done. The computer spits it out and puts it in. We had to put the new well 5 on that one. We've included some wastewater information. This is not required for the resolution, as the resolution is only for Reg 170 for water. I just thought it would be a good overview of the summary of the activities we completed. Wingham wastewater through capital, we replaced the UV system that was outdated and needed updating. New auto sampler, so that's what grabs your composite sampler. Composite sample is 24 hours. It has to grab a sample every couple minutes. Again, preventive maintenance performed. Blythe wastewater, there was a clarifier rebuilt. The weir around it was starting to deteriorate. That was part of capital. Blower number 2 had to be rebuilt. It had a catastrophic failure. We had to take it down to Mississauga, and again, preventative maintenance. Ministry inspections are required annually. Out of a 3-year term, there is one that is unannounced. They just show up with not even a 24-hour notice, and the other 2 are announced, you know they're coming. This year, Wingham and Blythe both received 100% on their inspection ratings for water. That would be based on the non-compliance compliance side. Sometimes the ministry puts some recommendations, which we bring forward with my contact here with North Huron. The drinking water quality management system is something also implemented in by Reg 170. What it is more or less an ISO 9001 type of thing. Requires us to say what we're going to do it, and prove it. So we get audited by an outside source. This is important to council because it's also part of your standard of care, and also keeps your license, municipal licenses, water permits active current. So there was no major non-conformance, 2 minor non-conformances, and those are more of on an administrative side. Those major, if you have a major non-conformance, you have time to correct it and fix it. If you continue to have major non-conformances, your license, municipal license, may be at fact. You don't lose it necessarily, but you have to fix them right away. So this year coming up, I believe in August, will be an offsite. So we send information to them, and they review and audit all the information. Water taking limits, this is a requirement of the annual report and summary report. Provide some information on what wells are running, well 3, well 4, how much water per day they are taking, the total they are allowed, the peak flows, the maximum permitted. So with this graph here, you'll see the maximum permitted of the 2 wells is up around 12,000 cubic meters of water. Your peak flow and your amount was just over 2,000 cubic meters. Therefore, what this is trying to say is you have a lot of room for development and or improvement, and ultimately that's a pretty good sign that you have that that extra room to move on your water system. Blythe, again, we've added well 5, so therefore the it'll be a little different than years before. Your maximum permitted will be a little higher. And again, the percentages are in green, and they're very, very low right down there, where you're nowhere near the percentage of limit for your maximum permitted of water taking. Now, there has been no water, wastewater bypass in Wingham. Again, big lagoon system can handle all of this extra water and flow. Blythe, on the other hand, does have some difficulty trying to stay within not having bypasses some of its infiltration problems. We see a total of just under 10,000 cubic meters bypassed in an event of 218 hours. With this, there's not much that can be done other than to report it. We've reported to the Ministry of Health, Spills Action Center, which is the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change, and take samples as required. There are things that can be done, and in discussion on another day on how to try to minimize the amount. With the weather being the way it is, I'm not quite sure that these events will be mitigated ever. I found in Godrich we haven't had any for 6-7 years, and we seem to be having more and more weather's changing, so it has a lot to do with it. Water quality summary. This just has an overview for Wingham and Blythe, what residuals for chlorine were taken, your average, your max, your min. So you have to keep a certain chlorine residual at your well houses and for disinfection purposes. And it also must maintain a minimum level of the far ends of the distribution. So basically it's telling you what residuals were through the time. 0.20 milligram per liter is like part per million. You don't want to be down in around the 0.2. That's kind of where you want to start increasing the chlorine a little bit. And the health unit really doesn't like to see much over 5.0 milligram per liter. The wastewater, again, a lot of this is on your charts and graphs. Not going to go through all the phosphorus and total suspended removal, but if you look at your percentages of what's removed, and we're meeting the effluent parameters required by the ECAs, C of A's, so certificate of approvals, the percentage removed of the influent coming into the waste plant and what goes back out to the environment. Adverse water samples are incidents where you are out of a compliance range, meaning you're required to have certain parameters for total coliform, E. coli, and the rest. Wingham had none. Blythe had an incident of one total coliform, which is in a distribution system. If you take a sample from a water tap, if there's maybe a spider on it, you can have a 1 total coliform. So you report it to the ministry, you take a resample, you send it in, and if there's no resample, that's what that is. So it's just checks and balances. Doesn't mean there's any bad water whatsoever. If there is bad water, there is health units and precautionary boil waters and all the rest. So that's what adverse samples are there. And that concludes what I've brought forward. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Councillor Knott.
Through the route to yourself, and the bypasses in Blythe, are they mostly a result of perhaps downspouts connected to the sewage system as opposed to the stormwater system? Is that what it appears to be?
It can be, and it can be a number of events and reasons. A couple we had, as you see, there was a number of bypasses. 2 were based on the clarifier because the full process wasn't in. A couple were rain events, so that would I'd like to say has something to do with some roof leaders. It also can have a lot to do with the condition of manholes, and if there's cracks and stuff around, water can get in. Probably a study to find out exactly where it's coming from, smoke test, dye test. There are ways to find out exactly where it's coming from.
Is that something then that would be on the books for the future?
I would think I would suggest it, and has been suggested for certain things. I believe Wingham is starting to look into the Cameron and Blythe too, probably more importantly, because it is having the bypasses.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, that Richard will read the suggested motion.
The motion that we have here is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the presentation of John Graham, Veolia Water Canada, regarding 2017 annual activities review for information, and further that Council receive the 2017 annual and summary reports for the Blythe and Wingham water systems for information, and further that the 2017 annual and summary reports be made available to the public free of charge and posted on the municipal website.
Councillor Sight, Councillor Vauden. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, moving to the clerk's department. 6.11, Economic Development Committee appointment. Richard?
The first report that I have for you tonight is regarding an Economic Development Committee appointment. The member, there's a member who is, or someone who's interested in becoming a member, I should say. Grant Sparling would, if appointed, would be the manufacturing representative for the Blythe Ward. It's my understanding that he has been attending the meetings, but in order to become a voting member, council would have to appoint him to that committee. And so if council chooses to do that, the recommendation is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the report of the clerk/manager IT dated April 16, 2018 regarding an appointment to the North Huron Economic Development Committee, and further that council adopts bylaw 37, 2018, which amends Schedule A to bylaw 103, 2017, and appoints Grant Sparling, manufacturing representative Blythe Ward, to the Economic Development Committee. And further, that council approves an exception to section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw 37, 2018 to be passed at the April 16, 2018 council meeting.
Councillor Knott?
I will so move.
And Councillor Vauden seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. 6.1.2, notice of a request for drain improvement, rental municipal drain. Richard?
Thank you, Rafe. Second report up here, we have another section 78 has been received for to municipal drain. This one is for the Rintoul municipal drain. Our drainage superintendent, Kirk Livingston, has met with the Huron and has some details on that, what they're after. Perhaps maybe if there's any questions, Kirk could speak to them, unless otherwise the motion would be to direct the clerk to send the notice required under section 78(2) to Mason Valley Conservation Authority, OMAFRA, and to the parties who requested the improvement under section 78.
Is there any questions? Councillor Knott?
I just have one question because I had a little hard time reading on the request there. Where it was written in the last sentence. Can you tell me what that actually says?
Kirk?
So the last sentence read is coming in the drain, the whole farm, still a problem, close to the road.
Okay.
So essentially what's taking place there, after my discussion with Huron, is it's an old closed tile system in the field, the Rintoul drain, and there's a few branches on that farm. And the tile are not very deep into the ground. So because of the tiles age, they're weak, we're having blowouts on the farm, and they feel that the tile that's there now is not adequately sized to carry all the systematically drained land. So they're hoping for a larger drain through their property. Possibly crossing County Road 22, which is Donnybrook Mine, I think.
Supplementary, go ahead.
Yes, just up there, now looking at this is an old drain, so it's tile. If it's more efficient to turn into an open ditch, would that be a recommendation the engineer down the way?
Probably not here. An open ditch really ruins the land for farming practices. So I would say that a closed tile system would be far beneficial in this area. And I think I haven't really looked at the watershed boundary. The file's in possession of an engineering firm right now, but I'm thinking that the only work or the only landowner that would be assessed in these repairs would possibly be them themselves.
Okay.
Deputy Reeve.
To read to, what size of tile is it?
I don't have the report. If I
Okay,
had the report, I can answer that, but I don't have the report.
but it's a good size tile or not?
No. If I'm gonna guess, maybe the top end would be like a 6 inch, because this is the top end. These branches are at the top end of the ring tool, and the water is going to the north on that farm.
Okay.
Councillor Hallinan.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. And Councillor Knott seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. And 6.1.3, disposition of surplus property, a portion of 360 Josephine Street. Richard?
Thank you, Ruth. So for this report, it's regarding the piece of property that council provided direction back in December to staff to proceed with the disposition of this piece of property. It's a portion of 360 Josephine Street, which is Crookshank Park in Wingham. And basically, there was a delay because the land needed to be surveyed, and because of the winter and time for the surveyors to get out there, that had to wait until the spring, which has now been completed, so the process could move along should council choose to do that. And if so, the recommendation is that council, the Township of North Huron, hereby declares Part 1, Lot 6, Registry Plan 22R 6630 to be surplus to needs of the municipality, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby authorizes the clerk to proceed with the disposition of Part 1, Lot 6, RP 22R 6630 by advertising the disposition of said property, as well as informing 909395 Ontario Inc. of Council's decision, so that they may exercise their first right of refusals if they so choose, as permitted by bylaw 50/2008.
Motion.
Deputy Reeve moves, Councillor Knott seconds. Is there any further discussion on this? All in favor of the motion? 6.1.4, draft Huron Natural Heritage Plan. Laura, please.
Good evening, Raven Council. So there was a report sent to you from the planning department from Sandra Weber and Denise Van Amersfoort with an update on the Natural Heritage Plan. It's been a while since there has been an update coming from our department about it, so we thought we would send the report to local councils and also do a presentation to provide some more information. So from the report, there were really 3 items to just kind of expand upon. There has been, the mapping in the technical document has been updated to reflect the 2015 aerial photos that are available. So this is an update because previously the technical document was creating the mapping based on the 2006 aerial photos. So the 2015 are much more current. The quality of the photos are better as aerial photography has increased in its quality. So they're more likely to be accurate and reflect what's more currently on the ground today. So that's something, and the turnaround time for the mapping was really great. So we're happy with how we have that. As well, there were updates to the documents themselves. The technical document for the Natural Heritage Plan had a subtitle added called Background Research for Natural Environment Planning. And the plan itself previously had the full title of the Huron Natural Plan Heritage Plan Implementation Strategy. And that's been renamed, shortening it just to simply the Huron Natural Heritage Plan, with the subtitle Current Approach to Natural Environment Planning and Recommended Updates. And this reflects that the contents of the plan and the contents that are in the plan, not that it itself is a plan to be passed under the Planning Act, and it acts more as a background research document to help make informed decisions on future natural environment planning and any potential proposed designation or land use designation changes. So any implementation and proposed designation change will occur only at the time of a municipality's 5-year review of their official plan or an update to their zoning bylaw, rather than a land use designation change occurring via this plan. This is a technical document making those recommendations at a high level. And then it also describes, the report describes the future public consultations. So the planning department is proposing to have public drop-in sessions in May, and as well online consultation. So you can view the mapping that's available based on the 2015 aerial photos online and submit comments that we would receive and incorporate as part of our public consultation. Those are kind of the main points that have come out of the report and our update to councils.
Any comments or questions? Councillor Vodden.
I understand that there are some detractors to this plan. And I'm wondering, do they have anything to stand on? Do they have any relevance?
So the technical document is based on, it is a scientific approach to identifying the county's natural features. So if there was someone who had a concern about a potential land use designation change that would affect their property, that would be placed under individual review at the time we were proposing land designation changes.
So there's no big movement against natural planning.
In this case, we are doing a lot of public consultation to get opinions because there is a significant amount of natural environment and natural features identified in the county.
Yes. Well, that's it. Thanks.
Deputy Reeve.
So if there is objectors, they can only object for their own property. They can't be, I can't be objecting for raised property. It has to be on their own property if they are objecting. Is that true?
Well, if there was a change being proposed for property, we would consult with, if they had a concern about it, with them directly. So if it was that the plan itself was identifying something that wasn't a natural feature or considered, it was picking up. So an example that we found with the updated mapping was the technical document would pick up a sewage lagoon because it does have some of the features that also are identified in a natural feature. But in our case, it wouldn't be a natural environment feature to recognize on our mapping because it's more of a utility land use. So that type of local lens would be applied. And if there were randos with consideration, we would look at what's there versus how it's identified in the technical document.
Councillor Syke.
And those objections, would those go to hearing? Like I'm getting the sense where we may be questioned about how a designation flows within our municipality. So my question is that if somebody has a complaint or a concern, would their first impression to come to us or would go right directly to Huron County for that discussion?
The plan itself hasn't been approved by County Council. They will be approving the Natural Heritage Plan because it's been a county item directed from County Council to proceed with that. The land designation changes would be local councils who are making their approvals to either a zoning bylaw update or an official plan update. So any proposed land designation changes would be brought to the local councils because they know it would be within their municipality and they know the municipality that they're in.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hallahan.
So will there be some sort of an open house or for property owners to actually see their property as to what it's designated or
Yes.
before it's passed?
Yes, so
Yes.
now we
So-
have the high level mapping, so it's not quite scaled down to property by property because we can't do that countywide in one go. That would be at each municipality's official plan review. So for example, even if the Natural Heritage Plan is approved, there wouldn't be a land designation change at the county level. North Huron wouldn't have land use changes proposed until the entire official plan was being looked at with extreme detail, because we'd be looking at cover to cover and all the maps in the official plan, and that would involve an open house and a public meeting, the whole process for an official plan review. The Natural Heritage Plan itself, we're proposing more public consultation, the online commenting, so people can see the maps, and then the public drop-in session, so they can have one-on-one conversations with us if they have specific questions.
And so when this might take place, or is there any
So
time frame?
for the public drop-in sessions,
Mhm.
we're proposing May, and then we understand that just because of the seasons, we may, and then the online commenting will be available all summer. And then we're considering a later fall season or November time because of just the timing that could work out for the farmers.
Thank you.
I will make the one comment that pasture fields with trees in them can appear in the natural heritage, because natural heritage measures canopy of tree cover, not an area planted to a crop. And that's one of the things that some people have a problem with. And the one thing that I will say that I have received a number of comments about is for over the last 2 years, those that have been trying to work with the committee have asked the planning department not to do it in seeding or harvest. And unless things are different this year, May is still in the seeding. And all 3 farm groups have asked that to be avoided if possible. Maybe it couldn't. That's just a comment. I'm not shooting the messenger. Anything further? Okay, thank you, Laura.
And just to let you know, council will receive a formal invitation to any public consultations or drop-ins that may hold.
Moving right to 6.3.1. Okay, 6.3.1, the Richard W. Levan Airport Signage Policy. Pat?
Yes, thank you. So back in February, Apex Helicopters approached us about improvements for their sign at the entrance to the Richard Levan Airport. And in light of giving them a yes or no, we realized we had no sign policy for the airport. So we've developed a draft policy for council's consideration, basically looking at who can put signage up at the airport, where can it be located, if it's located on Highway 86, if it encroaches on the highway property or Turnberry and things like that, what other legislation that they need to be aware of before they can get permission to erect their sign. The other goal that we had with this policy was to make sure that our entrance sign was the dominant sign at the airport, that's the first thing you see. It's the largest sign at the entrance. So I guess what I wanted to also share with council is that we would like for council to consider this process for people who would like to erect a sign. And then we can proceed with looking at Apex Helicopters application for their sign. And should you accept the policy as it is, then they would like to proceed with putting up a new sign for their business to promote it in the same location that our sign is right now, and erect a new airport sign to the north or closer to the highway, that is actually a more desirable location. Our sign, if anybody's been by there, we propped it up with some levers and things. It's in poor condition. So we welcome the opportunity for them to assist us by putting up a new sign. And at the same time, it benefits them. It puts their sign in a location that is beneficial to them and would follow the policy as we have presented it here in draft.
Comments? Councillor Knott.
Through yourself to Pat, when I read through this provision only allows for signs to be erected by those who are tenants at the airport, correct?
That is what we drafted here, yes.
Just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Councillor Syke.
Through your read, so if the sign policy was adopted, have you reviewed this policy with Apex at all to understand whether they would accept the terms of this policy?
Pat.
Yes, we have reviewed the draft with them. We have looked at how it could fit their sign desires, and we feel that we have come to an agreement, as long as the draft policy is agreeable to council, that we can work as staff through the operational side of it to get their sign up.
Deputy Reeve.
What part does Morris Turnberry play in this?
Well, we are located in the municipality of Morris Turnberry, and they have a sign bylaw. So the sign will have to acquire a sign permit through their CBO, who's here if you need to ask another question. But yeah, so they will go through the sign permit procedures in Morris Turnberry, and that will inspect the sign, the integrity of the sign, and anything else that's on the permit to make sure it meets building code.
Okay.
I'll move it.
And Councillor Montenegro seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving to 6.7.1, shared services for a fire chief. Dwayne, do you want to take over?
Sure. So as council is aware, we've been without a full-time fire chief since December of last year. And staff commenced the hiring process to replace the fire chief. Council also authorized staff to simultaneously investigate the sharing of a fire chief with a neighboring municipality. So staff have been in discussions with a neighboring municipality, and we have received a positive response from the municipality of Huron East. And Huron East would be interested in their fire chief essentially becoming our fire chief. And he would continue to work for the municipality of Huron East, but would provide managerial fire chief services to North Huron in the form of things such as budgeting and reporting and attending council meetings. And he would work closely with our deputy chiefs, Deputy Townsend and Krieger, who would be responsible primarily for their operational aspects. Marty Bedard is the fire chief for the municipality of Huron East. Marty currently provides fire prevention services to Huron East as well as Morris Turnberry. So in light of the additional workload that he'll be assuming, we're proposing to enter into a reciprocal agreement whereby we would provide fire prevention services to Huron East and Morris Turnberry, and in return, their fire chief would provide fire chief services to us. So for Morris Turnberry, they will be dealing with one fire chief and one fire prevention officer. We've consulted with them and they're supportive of the arrangement. And we've also reached out to Central Huron and Nashville, Colborne, Wawanosh, who are the other two municipalities that we're currently providing fire services to. And they're supportive as well. They've raised no issues or concerns. So I have a motion recommendation here. I don't know, Richard, do you want to read it or do you want me
Yeah,
to?
I can read it if you like. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report of the CAO dated April 16, 2018 regarding the sharing of a municipal fire chief and a municipal fire prevention officer, and further that council authorizes the clerk and the reeve to sign bylaw 38, 2018, being an agreement between the municipality of Huron East and the Township of North Huron for the sharing of Huron East's fire chief, and further that council authorize the clerk and reeve to sign bylaw 39, 2018, appointing the Huron East fire chief as North Huron's fire chief, and further that the council of the Township of North Huron authorize the clerk and reeve to sign bylaw 40, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint Michael Ross as North Huron's fire prevention officer, and further that council authorizes the clerk and reeve to sign bylaw 41, 2018, being an agreement between the municipality of Huron East and the Township of North Huron for the sharing of North Huron's fire prevention officer, and further that council approves an exception to section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaws 38, 2018, 39, 2018, 40, 2018, and 41, 2018 to be passed at the April 16, 2018 council meeting, and further the council directs the CAO to discontinue the hiring process for a full-time fire chief at this time.
Councillor Hallahan, Councillor Knott. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor C.
I just want to make the comment that this is an excellent opportunity. I think it's been well documented, our transition between fire chief as well as the circumstances around our fire department in the past, and I am very impressed with the fact that we've come to a mutual understanding of what the municipality needs as a fire chief and how that can be moved forward going in a positive enlightenment. And I think it's an imperative that it's noted that both the deputies as well as all of the people underneath those deputies were involved in the discussion about this arrangement. So I think we're all in a good spirit of where we are going forward with this new arrangement. So I'd like to thank them as well as staff for that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else?
So I'll maybe just comment in terms of, so this is, the agreement and everything is here with our council for consideration tonight. It will be considered by Huron East Council tomorrow night. The proposed effective date would be May 1st, but it's subject to North Huron's approval and subject to Huron East's approval.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.72, Child Care Services Agreement. Dwayne, this is more or less one of those things that we do on a yearly basis, but go ahead.
Sure. So this is an agreement with the Huron County for child care services. The province through the county provides, as you see in my report, a significant amount of funding to assist with our child care services. And an agreement is needed between the county and the municipality whereby, you know, we provide the service and then they provide financial assistance for that. In the past, there's been kind of time periods. This is proposed to be essentially an indefinite agreement until either party terminates it. So if the province discontinues funding, then the county is likely going to want to terminate the agreement. Or if we as municipality decide for whatever reason that we want to terminate it, we can certainly do so. There are those provisions in the agreement. So rather than continue on an ongoing regular basis, the proposal is just to have an agreement, and as long as funding is available, then the agreement would continue to exist unless, again, we decided that, for whatever reason, we want to go. So, and then I just provided some more background information there in terms of the manager of child care services and myself met with the county, and we're investigating and exploring some different ideas, some different ideas out there, in terms of ways perhaps that we can better or improve the service.
Okay. Do I have a mover? Deputy Reeve Campbell and Councillor Vauden. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving to correspondence. 7.1, County of Huron Emergency Services Public Access Defibrillator Program. Richard?
Yes, thank you, Reeve. So I guess I'll just provide a little bit of background on this one about where the recommendation came from. So staff received the correspondence from Jeff Horstman and of Huron County, and there was some discussion at our senior management team meeting about this item, and the Director of Recreation Facilities and the Director of Finance both noted that there is a reserve fund set up for the AED replacement at the complex as well as the Blythe Arena. So that's where the suggestion here is to use those funds to make the replacement. And then of course, the third one on the list for replacement this year is the unit at the Belgrave Community Center. So the notice could be sent to that board for them to consider as well.
Pat?
I was just going to add to Richard's comments that back quite a while ago, when it was becoming predominantly in the media that arenas needed AEDs, this was a while ago, both communities, Wingham and Blythe, independently, their service groups and local citizens got together to raise the money for the AEDs for both locations. And then at the exact same time, Huron County received funding from Red Cross to actually purchase them. So this money has been sitting in reserves for quite some time. It was raised by these local communities exactly for this purpose. So I just wanted to give some background for some of the councillors who may not have been here at that time, just so everybody's aware.
As well as Red Cross, Heart and Stroke kicked money in at that time as well.
Yeah, that's why we didn't have to use the money to buy them. They were supplied in the end. So yeah, through Huron County.
Councillor Sype, and then
I'm moving.
Moving.
I'll second. I just have one question.
Go ahead then.
And I guess this might be to Donna through yourself. Donna, how much money do we have in those reserves?
$6,495.97.
Do we have more than enough money to replace those two defibrillators then? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you. My second.
Councillor Hallahan.
So, just, so how does it go with Belgrave then? This notice has to go to them, so that's.
The staff is going to forward the notice, and that as an independent board that leases from the Township of North Huron, they will make the decision on how they will handle moving forward on renewing their defibrillator.
The Boyd Rock.
Yes. That's the way I understand it. Pat?
I was just going to mention that it was, I believe, the board that independently worked with Huron County to get that defibrillator in the building back when it was put in, if our memories are right now. But
I think so.
Yeah, and so they would be under their umbrella that they would renew it or replace it under our tenancy agreement with them.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, 7.2. Ernie Hardeman, MPP, Oxford, call on province for right to approve landfill developments. This is sort of a rather long, and I know that Richard has looked at it. Give him direction whether you want him to read the whole thing or not. Councillor Wong?
I'm prepared to make a motion that we comply with it.
Comply? And Councillor Knott seconding?
Yes.
Okay, further discussion? Councillor Knott?
I'll make the comment that this is a big issue. And although this originated in Ingersoll, I know the mayor of Ingersoll, we've known each other for years very well. There was probably a great deal of thought by him and his council before they put this forward. But as you notice, places in the world, including Michigan and that, are beginning to restrict the amount of garbage that they take from us in landfills and so on. And the same thing is happening now in China, where recyclables that we used to ship over there are now being rejected. They won't take them. And there are movements afoot to find places to put all of this. And if we're not careful, we as municipalities may find ourselves to be, as we had with windmills, unwilling house of landfills. And we really need to push so that we do have input into whether or not we get them and how they operate within our municipality and where they operate. This goes back to that previous letter that I said we should support. Same kind of concept where we're having things forced down our throat. And then having to monitor them and deal with them ourselves. So because once they put a landfill in, we have to take care of it. We already know what that involves, wells and so on. So 100% we need to put full support behind it.
Councillor Slade?
Yeah, to be quite honest, when I read this, I was actually I actually took my breath away that, you know, somebody else can tell us where the landfill goes, and we have no say in where those types of so it begs the question, what else do we not have the authority to put in? So, you know, that would be definitely a conversation for another night, but I definitely wholeheartedly support the comments by Councillor Knott when I read this, because I'm like, I think we need to be abreast about what things come into our municipality, because obviously those costs are going to affect the taxpayer and the ratepayer in the municipality. So I think it's a fair comment, and I think we should support the deal.
Councillor Watt?
I certainly support it too, and if this goes through, this will be the one area where we have a little bit of control. The rest of the operation is totally out of our hands. The Ministry of Environment.
Okay, I probably shouldn't when I'm chairing the meeting, but I did meet with quite a few, well, there's 8 from Ingersoll that I met with at Roma in one of the hospitality rooms, and it's shocking what Ingersoll is looking at, and that they feel powerless, so that I applaud council's support of this motion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you for your indulgence in me speaking on that issue. Okay, moving over to council reports. The Reeves activity report, and Dwayne has already touched on that last Thursday night that Dwayne and I went and made the announcement that if North Huron ratified the agreements for the chief and the fire prevention officer tonight, and Huron East tomorrow night, that the plan was that they would be effective 1st of May. And that the deputy chiefs did not tell anybody, but they did announce that there would be an announcement from the CAO and myself at Thursday night's practice. And there was very widespread relief that it was a step forward, and they were happy that they had been heard, and that above all else, we went to them before they read it in the press. We knew it was coming out Friday in both Huron East's and our reports, so that is why Dwayne and I went and told them what would be coming before council tonight before it was in the press, and it was deeply appreciated. Any other councillors want to relate committee work or if there's any updates, Alice Monroe Festival or anything?
Well, speak to Alice Monroe if you want.
Okay.
So the lineup is ready to go. Tickets are on sale via the Live Festival Theater, and I can't think of her name. Is the main person, but it got a full female cast, and we're really looking forward to it. So Saturday is going to be all day in Blythe, and Sunday will be all day here in Wingham. A little bit of a change from previous years, but we're looking forward to a good event this year.
Okay, Councillor Singh.
Yeah, I just want to comment, just to advise that next, there is going to be a meeting. It was the association, the Police Services Board has ratified an agreement with the association that came into effect last Friday or last Tuesday, I believe. So we're very happy with that agreement with the board. The board has also issued to the Treasury a new budget that is going to be presented, I believe, between myself and Chief Poole. He's going to be here to have questions or comments from council when we do present that. As it is a difference, there is a significant difference of the how the budget is laid out and what's in it, based on the comments from the public meeting as well as the operation itself. So I think it's important that the news be that there is a ratification agreement in place with the association. The association is very happy with the arrangement based on, I believe, Constable Kirkby, the president, was very grateful for the work that we had to do. The board was very appreciative of the work that myself, but also the vice chair did, and I think it was a very difficult negotiation. But I will tell you that the arrangement and the agreement is for 2 years, and I will leave it at that it is ratified, and once the agreement comes here, the budget comes here, if there's questions with regards to that agreement, we would be more than happy to answer those questions as they are at that time.
Thank you. Councillor Knott.
I guess I'm going to throw one out here that's going to maybe segue right into the next part and report that at our last council meeting, Councillor Vodden had put forward a motion, and the results of that vote discussed with the blind BIA a couple of days later, actually a day later. The BIA was rather unhappy with the results of it, and some discussion ensued. I'm at this time want to throw out that I think there was some misunderstanding from discussion after the meeting with a couple of councillors that what Councillor Vodden had actually put forward was a motion to request that the Works Department investigate the cost of the snow removal in Blythe. Not that we were going to do it, but to investigate what cost was involved and that we would move forward from that point and decide how to do that. Now, that could have been done in several different ways to fund that cost. Subsequent to that, I've, of course, on the road all the time, been with the fine spring weather we've had, been through many municipalities that have snow issues. And one of the problems in Blythe, as I said, to me, it was a grave concern, was the safety issue there because of the narrow streets. Not just the access to the stores or to the street, but there was a safety issue involved. And, you know, it was brought up that, you know, about Wingham. Well, Wingham doesn't necessarily have the same safety issue, though to some degree they always do when you have snow in the streets, but you also have that access problem. And driving through other small towns over the last several weeks and looking at what happened to them with these kind of freaky snowstorms that we've had, I realized that from an economic viewpoint, people will, if they find it inconvenient to get to your store, they will go somewhere else. So they may literally drive 20 or 30 kilometers to the next town if they feel it's easier for them to access stores. And then perhaps we're missing the point here. On top of the safety issue, this is an opportunity perhaps for both Wingham and Blythe to present ourselves as a more economically friendly and open communities to the public, in that we do make sure that our stores and so on are accessible to people even when we do have snow, and that we shouldn't be looking at this as just an expense that we toss out that we're trying to cut. But this is actually an opportunity, because I've seen some towns where they have exactly the same issue, and I think to myself, you know what, I would drive another 10 or 15 kilometers this way or that way, because I know there's a bigger town there and they clear their sidewalks a little bit. You know, whether it be over to Strathroy or wherever. And maybe we're missing the point. There is the safety issue, which is a major concern. There's also an economic development issue, and that's what we're trying to do, is present our town, and we're trying to draw people here in the winter months, which is our big problem. Summer months, we have some things going on, bring people here. Winter months, big issue getting people here. And maybe we're driving our own people to send them down the road to another village. So I would like to put forward that a different motion.
Okay.
So
I
how we
think
do
I
this?
will
This is what I'm
stop you
gonna
right at
ask.
this
Okay.
point.
Yeah.
And Richard, can you go to the procedural bylaw?
Sure. So the item related to reconsideration of an item within the first year, according to the procedural bylaw, that in order for an item to be reconsidered in the first year, a notice of motion has to be made by a member who voted in the majority. So in this particular instance, that would be the motion was defeated by the majority, which was Councillor Rich-Minga and Deputy Reed Campbell. So for that item to be reconsidered according to the procedural bylaw, the motion would need to be made by one of those individuals.
Okay. Councillor Syke?
So I think there was a little bit of this misconception about what the discussion was. So I am not against the discussion that would happen last week about having. My only point was, why are we looking at one central area? That was my point. To be quite fair, I think ultimately, if we looked at if the whole policy was reviewed and that particular item was brought forth in that policy as a difference, because I'm okay with differences if they're unique and they need to happen, then my comment is we need to look at the policy as a whole, and that's how I think it needs to be looked at, with the understanding that there is going to be this additional review of whether that change in the policy needs to be. So that to me is not against economic development or against Blythe's health and safety issue. I just want the policy to be a North Huron policy with idiosyncrasies of Blythe, Ward, or whatever the case may be. But I think that is the stuff that I think we need to start moving forward and not look at another policy inside of a policy. My comment was, and again, I will be, because it needs to be done in a notice of motion, that is the conversation that I'm going to review over after tonight, to propose that notice of motion at the next council meeting, to provide an opportunity for us to bring that back to the table about what that policy looks like, with the Blythe discussion of Councillor Biden's health and safety and the snow clearing of what that cost may be as encompassing of that policy. So that's the part that I'm prepared to provide at the next notice of motion. But I wanted to make sure I was clear that I'm not against the conversation about health and safety and Blythe's snow removal. What I was against is that we're only talking about Blythe. And I think that's the conversation from my perspective, that is why I voted the way I did, and that's the only reason why I voted the way I did.
No,
I will let you have a comment now, Bill.
Oh, I'm judging by this then that you were prepared as one of the majority voters then to put forward that
I will be putting, yes, I will be putting again another notice of motion to discuss exactly what you've talked about and what Councillor Vaughn had brought up, with the caveat of why I voted the way I did, so that we can have another further discussion about what that needs to be.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Anything else on that? Okay, Richard.
So, just further to that, so the notice of motion to reconsider should then come to the next meeting, and it needs to be voted on, and it needs to be approved by at least 2/3 of majority of council, so 5 members, to accept that notice of motion.
Okay. Okay, we need the motion that a notice of motion is coming forward.
Notice of motion to reconsider, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you actually need a motion to say that I'm making a notice of motion?
Yeah.
No, yes.
Yes, and then one
To
of the,
reconsider.
and then one of the majority
To
needs
reconsider.
to second it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The two of you are agreeable to moving and seconding that we get into the reconsidering. Further discussion on this, that if we have 5 of 7 vote in favor, that it will come back as to reconsider this issue. Are we ready? Those in favor? It carries 6-1. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Well. It would probably have been better to have done recorded vote, but we can put in that the vote was 6-1. Okay.
One comment. I have one additional thing I just wanted to talk about. Okay. Over the last several weeks, it came to my attention that we've slipped up on something, and I think that maybe we should just have a little discussion, very short discussion about our website. And we had talked about turning perhaps that over somehow to the Economic Development Committee, along with somehow in administration, to get that updated on a current basis. Because I went in there to look at something the other day and realized that there was no updates in quite a while. still says the museum is going to be open. It doesn't have proper information in a couple of other areas and so on. And I started to look through and that's kind of pointless. But I think that we need to, as a council, make the decision of how we deal with this, because really we're kind of falling down. We need to put things like the Blythe Garden Group on our Facebook page, and we have a Facebook page, we have all the stuff, but we're not doing anything with them. So either we ask administration to take care of it, or we defer it over to the Economic Development Committee and work with them as far as how to deal with it. And I'm throwing that out as a point of discussion, but I don't want it to become a major one. This is something I think we need to get done, and we need to get done now.
Do you want to take it back to senior management?
Yeah, we certainly can. There has been, so as Councillor Syke is aware, the Economic Development Committee has established a subcommittee that's looking at marketing and tourism. So that certainly, in terms of online presence, has been part of that discussion. And we're going to be meeting again very, very soon. Talk a little bit about that further, and the recreation department is going to be part of that discussion as well. So, it's currently being reviewed and currently being looked at. But in terms of what you're raising, I think it would be in the best interest. I think perhaps as senior management team, we'll look at the website and, as you've identified, pull off outdated information and put up newer information, but that still doesn't negate the work of the subcommittee.
No.
So we'll go ahead and do that.
And I think we need to get department heads, and I'm not picking on you, Sean, but there is nothing in there regarding the new garbage collection schedule on the 1st of May either. Okay, so there's nothing on there indicating when that's going to start, how it's going to function. So I think as department heads, they also need to be midway. Check up on your own department as well. And so, thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving into the long, laborious part of bylaws. 10.1, bylaw number 33, 2018. Richard?
That bylaw number 33, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and Clerk to sign on behalf of council a memorandum of understanding between the Township of North Huron and the Musical Muskrat Festival Committee, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve and Clerk, and being posted in the bylaw.
Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga, Deputy Reeve Campbell. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, bylaw number 34, 2018. Richard?
That bylaw number 34, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and Clerk to sign on behalf of council a service agreement with the County of Huron for the provision of child care and/or early years programs and services, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve and Clerk, and then be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Vyden, Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 35, 2018.
Bylaw number 35, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and Clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement between the Township of North Huron and William Arnold Dawson for access and monitoring rights to the property located at 39601 Reeve Road, Lot 39, Concession 12, East Wawanash Ward, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve and Clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Vyden, Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 36, 2018.
Bylaw number 36, 2018, being a bylaw to establish remuneration and expenses of members of council, and to repeal bylaw 3, 2010, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve and Clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Syke, Councillor Knott, all in favor? Carried. Okay, Bylaw 37, 2018.
Bylaw number 37, 2018, being a bylaw to amend Schedule A Economic Development Committee appointments of bylaw 103, 2017, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Corporation of the Township of North Huron Economic Development Committee, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the reading clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Knott, Councillor Syed, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 38, 2018.
Bylaw number 38, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the reading clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and the municipality of Huron to provide the services of a fire chief to the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the reading clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Deputy Reeve Campbell, Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 39, 2018.
Bylaw number 39, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a fire chief for the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the reading clerk, and be engrossed.
Deputy Reeve Campbell, Councillor Knott, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 40, 2018.
Bylaw number 40, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a fire prevention officer and provincial offenses officers for the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the reading clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Knott, Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 41.
Bylaw number 41, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the reading clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement between the Township of North Huron and the municipality of Huron East to provide the services of a fire prevention officer to the municipality of Huron East, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the reading clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Vodden, Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Dwayne, do you want to do this announcement about an April 23rd budget meeting?
So as council will recall, we had a budget session and council gave direction in terms of looking at a budget generally around the 5%. And as Councillor Syed has indicated, we have now additional information. And before we bring forward the final budget for 2018, what I'd like to do is schedule a special meeting for next Monday evening at 7 o'clock, at which time we will update council in terms of where we're currently at. And as part of that, if council has any further direction to staff, we're certainly open to receiving that. So we're looking for a special council meeting to discuss the budget next Monday evening at 7 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. There's no other business. So, section 13, closed session. Do I have a motion to go in camera? Councillor Vodden, Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we will have a short recess.